live. Hi, good morning. Good morning, good evening to everybody who's with us, connected. We are here in one more panel on Cena Aberta meeting 2020. Very quickly, I want to say hello to all of you and thank you to the Castillo Becker Theater team. It's a cultural space that is supporting us. And also I want to thank Erica Schwartz that will mediate this panel. Patrick Durning, Rodrigo Gava, who is also somebody who's making this happen, and Eloisa Passos. Thank you for your availability. Our idea in these talks is to shed light into our work, share ideas, experiences, reflect upon the moment and the situation we're living through, and also think about some perspectives to the future, if anything has to change or not, and how we are dealing with this moment. We had not thought of the pandemic when we created this, but it's impossible to deny it. We're very happy for having you all here. Remember that this talk will be on YouTube. It's been recorded. For those who do not speak English, we have the English YouTube channel. And this is our last day. We have this afternoon at 2 o'clock in Brazil an online workshop by Yara Souza that's called the Gambiarra Self Inventive Potentials. Gambiarra is something that you cobble. So it's going to be very nice. It's this afternoon. If you can, come. And I have, my heart is aching because I have to go to a different activity now, because I'm sure this talk is going to be very nice. Thank you, Erica, Patrick, Rodrigo, Eloisa. Thank you. See you later. Good morning to everybody. This is the last panel of the cycle on technique and technology of Brasil Cena Aberta meeting, which is a great event with these people who are going on with their artistic work. Our topic today is the presential performance turned into live transmission. It's nice that we'll be exchanging with people who are hands-on, understanding cases and how we can think about this moment that is so challenging, that challenges our language of theater and audiovisual language. It's none of that. So what's this third thing that comes up? So I will introduce very quickly our guests. Today we have Patrick Durnin, who is a stage technician, graduated in the National School in 1988, and he was manager of projects, stage director, etc. He has been with Ex Machina since 2001 with La Casière de Luz, and he also is involved in theatrical productions. Since 2017, he works in Quebec, Canada, and he participated on the construction of this new site that has been transformed, and it's peculiar, and he's going to share that with us today. How did they adapt that space, a theater that was transformed into a studio? We also have Elo Passos here, who is a photography director. She has films that have been awarded. She has directed different short movies produced for Field of Visual platform with Glenn Greenwald and Laura Poitras. Her first feature movie is Pontes, and she has received many awards in Brazil and abroad. She has been awarded in Rio Festival, Gramado Festival, Sundance Film Festival, ABC Award, and many others. She's a member of the Scenic Arts Academy by Hollywood, from Brazilian associations, and DAFB with women transgender people in Brazil. And finally, Rodrigo Gava, who is an audio video streaming technician of our event. He works with sonoplasty and sound techniques. He's a multimedia artist. He's dedicated to the interconnection of music with visual arts and performance, creating soundtracks for theater, dance, performances, and expos. In 2020, he has done transmission of spectacles, of shows. He has worked with Robert Wilson, Living Theater, Worcester Group, and also in Usina Zona Theater. So I did this short presentation. I'll talk about the dynamics. First, we're going to be hearing Patrick, then Elo, then Gava, and then we open for Q&A to have an exchange. I have a few questions myself. And something that I think is, how does this process go, this adaptation process? What kind of challenges do you have for this third language? And now I give the floor to Patrick. You're muted.
Hello, everyone. Let me introduce myself a little bit more, just to give you some background about how I get involved in the scene, and all my implication that bring me to the theater construction. I've been a stagehand and a stage technician since I was in school, and I managed to get to electronic study, because I didn't think at the beginning that I could be a stage technician as a career. So when I was at school, I was responsible a few shows and equipment at that time, and I realized that my study in electronic was quite challenging, interesting, but on the other hand, very repetitive. So I decided to step to the entertainment industry instead of continuing on the electronics. So after a few adaptations, I realized that I could tour too. So I went to a theater school and learned production instead of industrial electronics. So that's my main background. That's probably why I managed to be able to drive that project in a different way than just a theater consultant can do. That's one part of the explanation. But since I've graduated from theater school, I joined Ex Machina in '98. So I got about 22, 23 years of implication with Robert Lepage, who is a challenging director who tried to change the narrative of the scenic play. And it's not just about the text, but the scenography itself and the mean to express the story on stage need to be rewritten in a different way. And actually, it's not agnostic. It's complete agnostic statement. There's no in Lepage conception. There's no dogma that need to be established to tell a story. It's exact opposite. We don't know how we can tell the story until the story itself appears. So I don't want to get into the dramatic, I don't want to get involved and explain all the dramatic research of Lepage, but since he does a lot of different artwork. He did some film, he did some opera, he did some museum installation. So it's part of his research And of course, its main activity remained the stage and the live performance and live theater. So when it was time to move to another location, because Ex Machina create show, and I was in charge of the creation center, but it was mostly just a black box where Ex Machina can rehearse and try to figure out how they're gonna make the creation and the show happen so they can export it. But we didn't have a proper theater where we can play our own in our own house. So every time we need to export, Ex Machina need to export their show. Even if when we play in Canada or in Quebec City, we went to the neighbor's theater to play the Lepage show. So after a few years, it was interesting. But on the other hand, Robert and Ex Machina think it might be a good thing to also receive other show and other company the way we wish to be received when we go outside. So we can have a window that in Quebec City that may show Quebec people what international theater might be. And actually, we didn't have that kind of room, that kind of venue. So we had very large theater, and we have few quite good small theater, but that mid-size stage that can receive a big European production with the proper technical infrastructure and the right amount of seats that doesn't give you the idea to be in a stadium or a very large concert hall. It doesn't exist in Quebec City. So the whole project was to create that space. And since it's need to be brand new, we also question a lot what the future size and the future what might be the better environment to listen to a show. And of course, you have plenty of theater consultants that can give you an idea, but they all have their own recipe, and you have to deal with the building codes. You have to manage the budget, and of course, all the architectural constraint issues that you need to address. So that makes a lot makes a lot of entrance to figure it out in balance properly to define what's going to be a proper stage for a form of theater, live theater, that might include a lot of technology and a lot of new media. So we decide to play it very how can I say that? Very modest and in very quiet way. It's not the building itself or the installation of the show that should dictate what the show's going to be. And for Lepage, by touring with Ex Machina, I realized as a technical director that most of the time we need to get stuff that are too obvious to get away, to make sure that the show is going to be the centerpiece of what you're looking for, and the experience of the theater is going to be between the audience and the proposition on stage. Lot of technological advance and implication in technology and show, it might be too flashy most of the time. It's very interesting if you go to a rock show or if you have a stunt in in a publicity. But we don't do theater show to be an exact replica of an Apple keynote. You want to be something more poetic. And on the other hand, when you do big opera and everything is by default bigger than nature because opera is something that's more lyric and more expressive, you can probably adjust the idea that maybe everything is a bit too much because it fits the purpose and it fits the whole lyrics of it gets to the mood. Everything is according to that idea. So when you do something very intimist and very small on stage, you don't want the technology to get too present. And Lepage actually integrated a lot of technology in his own show, but we don't want the building to be exactly a big gadget. So finally, if I get to the theater and give you an idea of what we try to do in a very simple way, it was to give the simplest stage that can afford or receive whatever technology needs to be, and just get the room, just get enough room so the technology can be as quiet and as integrated as possible. So maybe I should stop a little bit, or do you have any question or thing we, because I would like to give you an idea what the theaters look like and what the ideas were around, but mostly the next part is just scenographic and info.
Are you going to share your images?
Yeah, I'm going to give you a part of the new screen. Sorry. Of course, I'm going to comment on the architecture drawings and concept. This is a very early stage of the rendering of the architects. Never look like exactly the same, but that gives you a proper idea. So we're in the old Quebec, and actually it's a place that's been protected by government, so we cannot build whatever we want because there's a lot of architectural background that we need to respect. So what you see is a very old building that is called a YMCA. Like maybe you know the organization. It's just it was a building built 100 years ago, and it's the entrance of the old Quebec. So the lot on the ground floor was very limited by that corner. So we were literally cornered between a bunch of old buildings. So we cannot do a lot. So the architect decided to split that old building, keep the historical part, and tear everything down so we can build a newer structure for the theater. So the idea was to create a theater, but also move the creation center where we ex machina can be a resident, main resident, and keep on creating their own show to export it and sometime play it at the Diama, which is a new organization. It differs from ex machina, which creates shows and try to export shows. And the Diama try to receive show from other country, other venue, or other organization, and playing ex machina show as well. I'm gonna give you a major section, give you an idea of what the old
Patrick, you're mute. You're on mute.
Sorry.
Are you saying something?
Yeah, sorry. Okay, hold on. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Uh, the front of the building. I don't know. Do you see my mouse? Okay, the front of the building. We need to respect the floor level because we couldn't play with that because it was the historical part that we were not allowed to destroy. So we respect all those levels. And on the other end, we've been able to place a proper theater with a stage area, the venue itself, and the creation center on top of it. So it was very challenging because the ground was very narrow, so we didn't have the luxury of spreading stuff around. And also we were on a hill, so the main entrance of the building is actually on floor level, on ground level, but actually the loading dock that you don't see here is on the other street, on the other corner, is 2 levels below. So to get access to the creation studio, we need to climb up seven stories. So we didn't have the choice to stack stuff and put the. Actually, we managed to put the office in the middle to do a buffer between the two venues. Otherwise, it would be an acoustical nightmare. So we need to make it stiff enough and also make sure that the two venues are not interfering with the other. It's quite simple, and it was the most challenging goal was to make it and keep it simple. The idea was to have the proper rakes so people can see the stage properly and been able to have a proper area if we want to use it as a studio. So there's a lot of constraint that comes from the building code in Canada. We cannot afford to have different rakes when you have bleachers in Canada. So the only way we can do that is to separate the two sets of bleachers. So there's a main bleacher and there's the orchestra pit can have a different rakes because it's another set of bleachers. So that's one of the trick. If I go to, sorry, I'm going to scroll again. The idea was to be able to have a studio and use that, use a venue that can be changed into a studio. And one of the things that we realized is that in the 80s, when the studio, there are a lot of studio and warehouse that have been transformed into performance space for different installation, museum, performance, dance, and most of them look like a black box with bunch of pipes. So it was technical stuff that was put in front, and we didn't have any experience in a modest environment. So the most interesting balance that we knew was the Illier Theater in Barcelona. It was incredibly complex and over budget, but it was the most interesting transformable space that we knew and that we had visit. So we tried to keep the idea of it and make it as simple as possible. So we get inspired by that to get something that was closer to the original building that we had, So the concept of the architect was to keep the pattern of the front building, the one that we see on the street, and clear it as possible so we can hide all the technical catwalks and hanging position for the lights, for the sound. So when we use the venue as a Italian configuration, we add some kind of decoration, and it's quite modest. And on the other hand, when we transform it into a studio, it's not dull because we don't just have a black box with plenty of curtain. We still add something that can be useful. So the idea was also to have different kind of configuration, so we can afford to do what we used to do in warehouse and studio, but without having a theater that's dull as a barn or a simple warehouse. So the idea was to have an event configuration where we can use the stage and the venue itself as a big sound stage. So we can record, do cinema, do shootings, do event, corporal or studio event. We can also use just one part of the bleacher and what we call the small Italian. So if we have a show in residence for maybe a month or two, we can still afford to have other small event at the front, in front of the stage, and that event can be very small or very interesting to rent or just propose corporative events. We can also afford to take one part of the bleacher to do a bifrontal or two side by side front by using just one part of the bleacher. And of course we have a big orchestra pit, which is probably not profitable, but since it's been designed to be the second bleacher and the first row, it also very large to receive musicians. So if we decide to rehearse an opera, we can still manage to rehearse the opera. But of course, the orchestra pit is huge, so we can put maybe 70 musicians in there. But on the other hand, we just have 400 seats. So there's no way we can sell the ticket expensive enough to pay all those musicians. But in a rehearse situation, it's perfect. And also we can use the small Italian. When we designed the technical part of it, and I'm going to stop there because that's really that's the idea of putting the table so we can put everything technical, all other stuff that's going to change from show to show. And it was important to not impose any technical configuration or statement that say, this is it, this is the way we're going to do it, this is the way the sound's going to be, this is the way the lighting's going to be. There's no dogma in there. So we can play it the way we want. One of the main issue is when you build a room, there's no second chance on the acoustic. And most of the time, because the art is changing, because the way we do perform or deliver the show, it changed. The only thing that we was sure that has changed in the last 50 years is the acoustic environment and the sound. So we try as hard as we can to make the venue as dead as possible and put a cinema configuration into that. So we have 12 channels surround, and the main PA and the sound configuration of the venue is been calibrated. So the first time you go in, before you define the the show and you start recording cues, you start with the blank page is a 7.1 theater configuration. And the other thing that has to be addressed was the opening of the stage. The most of the theater that was built in the 19th century had a format of opening that was close to 4:3, like we used to have in TV. And I had to argue a lot to have a stage opening that is closer to 16:9 ratio. And actually, we decided to bring in a cinema screen so we can have a scope and a flat configuration that fit perfectly the opening of the stage. So between show, we can still afford to just lower the screen in front of the first drape and have a standard DCP cinema configuration without disturbing the show configuration. So, and we realized it was the most common idea is to, can you perform your theater play into a cinema? And if you sit as an audience member and listen to a Lepage show, it's probably the best configuration you can have. After that, is everything is related to what's happening on stage. But the new way to express and to build show is so influenced by the TV or the cinema that it is a nonsense to say that the theater should be 30 feet wide and 25 feet high, because none of our common reference is like that anymore. So I really don't know who's going to be the director, who's going to build an image on that, because everything that we have actually look to is a complete different format. So the theater consultant that I had to argue with, they were very upset when we decided to lower the proscenium arch and say, okay, it's going to be cost effective because the fly loft is going to be a bit lower. So that gave us a lot of argument on the budget and to play with the architect. But on the other hand, they say, oh, you're not going to be able to build any show because no Broadway show will enter into your theater. I say, wow, maybe Broadway show is not the reference anymore. So I'm going to stop that because I don't have any clue if I'm right or wrong, but the only thing I know is the future is going to tell me if I made a big mistake or not. But actually, it's not just on myself, but you're going to tell me. And anyway, it's a roadhouse, so we'll adapt like I used to adapt when I was touring with Ex Machina. So I guess that new show will adapt too. If it's too small, we'll know it quite soon. I'll leave it to you now. I think I done enough with my info.
Thank you, Patrick. Nice to hear about that. It's a project that it encompasses the language of the company itself, which is the element of technology, which is an element of the composition of the live sessions before getting to streaming, that projection that was used, and this freedom to make the format. I have a few questions that I'm going to leave to the end. And now Elo will share with us her experience. Hi, everybody. I want to thank you for the invitation. It's an honor to be here and to hear to Patrick. Thank you. I will introduce a little this instrument, this piece that somehow I consider was the revolution of my life when I found out a camera, when I discovered a camera. In the 80s, I discovered a camera over my parents, but he used it to take pictures of the family. That called my attention, and I found a picture album. When I was 17, I entered into the university in agronomics. I was approved to agronomics. It was the Federal University of Paraná, and I was also approved in fine arts. But I decided to go to agronomy because I wanted to be free. I didn't want to depend on my family to study drama because that would have to be paid. So I entered into the agronomic school, and most of my friends went to study art. And I thought the course was too conservative, just like my family. And I am Brazilian. I was born and raised in the southern part of Brazil, in Curitiba. It's a conservative city. I come from a conservative family, and that's why I started to study agronomics. But I was quite anguished with that. I was interested of thinking about ecology, but still I stopped college after a year, and I started to take pictures with my dad's camera. Started to take pictures of my friends in theater. So I start to take pictures of the stage and start to help lighting in theater in Curitiba in the end of the 80s. And the camera, what I find from my stance, the camera makes me get interested with movies. So I get involved with cine clubs. There was no movie course, cinema course in Brazil. So I started taking some workshops. And during that time that I'm interested in cinema, I lose my best friend. She was 20, so was I, and she was killed in front of her house. And on that point in time, for me, life becomes, it's impossible to understand life. And I used to be extroverted, and then I go inside myself. And the camera became an instrument of observation, of looking at that world in a contemplative way and try to relate to the world through the camera. And now, after 30 years, I'm telling you a story of 30 years back, I start to understand that this camera becomes an extension of my body. It's more than myself. I start to talk and see the world through this camera. In my house, I learned how to establish a dialogue. I was born 1 year before a very tough year in Brazil. I was raised as Catholic, where dialogue did not exist. Authoritarism existed in institutions and in the family. And the camera introduces me to a place of go and see and listen. And so what was more important for me was not technique, but the emotion I had of seeing the world through the camera. So I get close to photography on that place. I'm saying that, and now I'm going to jump to see the camera today for me. So I'm talking about this camera while that girl was getting to know herself as a woman, and having that camera, I thought on those times that I was inside a shell and the camera would put me outside the shell. And that's what happened, because somehow I found my freedom in my profession through many cameras. I'm not afraid of any camera, this technology issues, because I started with an analog camera, a 35 millimeter, separate 16 millimeters, still photography, organizing a photography laboratory in the bathroom, and I start to print these pictures of the theater groups that I got involved. And then there was a conflict in my family because of my sexuality. So I fight with my father, and I break with my house and my city because I did not have space. When my friend died, and my choices are not understood, so I go to São Paulo and I find this place, which is a profession inside cinema as camera assistant, direction assistant, and the camera becomes more and more important. So I'm giving you this introduction to arrive in my trajectory to where I get involved with short movies, feature movies, and visual arts installments, taking pictures of that, and directing short movies. And theater stayed in my life. I would think projections for the theater and also would participate in lighting. So this background of mine is not academic. It's from my experience of circulating between theater, floating between theater and cinema, always been interested for characters. My movies always have this look towards this contradiction, which are the families, be them normative or any type of family. So I look at the stories, trying to tell those stories and taking pictures of them. And now I question myself how to survive in these times we're going through, how to survive in these difficult times that we're living through. So I chose to bring here an experience I had, an invitation from Yanni Café and Café, for me to take pictures of a life in Casa de Francisca. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. So I chose this project to sing to the end, Até o Fim Cantar, by Rubens Thais at Casa de Francisca. They've been doing many lives there. I had never done it like that. So this invitation, I said, Lili, Eliane, Carla, for me, it's an honor, but I don't do lives. And they said, but you have to learn how to do that. So I brought this show that I did, and Nauzetti, where they brought a text. There was a repertoire of 18 musics by Nauzetti, and they created a story on top of that, paying tribute to the movies. Our first meeting came as a tribute to movies, and we thought, let's put a screen between the stage and the invisible audience, that is the camera. And Irene said, no, I don't want that. I don't want to be stuck to technique. And I'm going to choose all the scenes, all the sequences of the inserts of the images that will be projected but will not be projected on that screen. So I started to project. Are they going to be projected? Are they not? So the idea of the director was very good because she decided to have control over that projection. so that the cameras or the artists would not be stuck. This projection was small, 60, I think I put a projector like that.
I think less than 1 meter, 90 centimeters, to give the depth in terms of resolution, because it was an archive and a tribute to cinema. And I put the camera that had the best optical to reproduce this projection that was live, but it was also projected on a wall outside of our stage, of our area. We went there once for the audience to see that we were projecting live in a corner of the space, this space called Casa de Francisca. So here to show how to use the technique and not to be a hostage, because we have a lot of adrenaline when we're going live. And the production can be, when you have a suggestion of projection on a translucid screen where I would see Anna behind. There were many textures that I had used, but we didn't have enough time to prepare. It was a low budget project, low budget. How can you use different tools without technical errors becoming so obvious? So I'm going to ask Tulio to show my teaser, 2 minutes, and here you will see the projection and you will see Na singing. Can we see that?
No rancho fundo, bem pra lá do fim do mundo, nunca mais houve alegria, nem de noite, nem de dia. Bando de insetos inquietos invadem os campos, devastam a cultura, mas são devorados por sapos gulosos. Só sobra uma mosca que pousa na velha e a velha fiando. Fábricas vêm para os trópicos, fim das florestas, o solo, o deserto, aquece o planeta, derrete as geleiras, aumenta o oceano, oceano na velha e a velha com essa sensação absurda de que falta alguma coisa em mim. Mas preciso decidir rápido, porque eu já estou ficando atrasada. Musa da música, mãe das Américas, filha da África, fé. Musa da música, mãe das Américas, filha da África, fé. Musa da música, mãe das Américas, filha da África, fé. Na poética, voz da genética, retiro o seu anel de doutor para não dar o que falar. E saio dizendo eu quero mamar, mamãe eu quero mamar, mamãe eu quero mamar. Levava um canivete no cinto e um pandeiro na
that was stable and glamorous. And the other cameras, the second camera, that was the open plane. I had Helen had to be at the level, stable. It had movement, but it was very suave. And the other cameras, the other two, were handheld, but trying to find the frames, making compositions. And of course, to light this live, I had only 2 days. Normally they give us one. I asked for an extra one. The illuminator and the assistant of Casa de Francisco, it's a very small team. Me plus two. And we had the equipment available of the venue, but I brought a cinema operator and I had some reflectors to help so that I could have the lighting that would mix cinema and theater for the shoot. And I use very simple things. When you look at that water on her skin, that water lighting movement, it's just, I have a with water and a lot of mirrors, broken mirror. And this was a marine theme that she was, and the theater with all those blue waves. Can I interrupt you? People did not see in Portuguese. They saw it only in English. And we would like them to see it. It was not on the Portuguese channel, and we were not able to see it. So conclude and ask Studio to show it again, because then everybody can see it. How many minutes do I have? No, we have time. We have time. I brought this case study, and I have another one, another partnership with an actor whom I have a partnership. He is João Miguel. He has this play on his life, and he asked me to adapt his play to a live. And I just had his permission to talk about this, what we're thinking about. And the next work, there's a creative work that I'm very interested in. First, it was at his house, and now it's going to be in a theater. Whether it's his house or a theater, our discussion in terms of creation, there's about 90 minutes, a little more. Now it's going to be 40 minutes. It was reduced. But everything was virtual. We did not meet. And the major issue with this text from the person called Bispo, but the original text that I propose and that we conceived together, the play is a monologue, and it talks directly to the spectator, to the audience. My exercise is how this camera will have a meaning as if they were spectators. That will be the extension of my body, and it will represent the many individuals in the audience. I'll be very different characters, the characters that will be on scene with him. And it has more than 10 years, this play. Andrew Miguel said, I don't want many cameras. I want just your camera. And I said, my camera can go through other ones. It's just a matter of representation. But we are creating a sequence of 40 minutes. And it's like a game between us, or we're playing together. If anything happens, I'll have two cameras. If anything goes wrong, I can do something. I can continue. I don't have to interrupt. I can't technically propose something that may have a problem when we broadcast. But there is this game between us where he is interacting with the camera the whole time. Who are the many spectators, who are the individuals in the audience? And I created, if you go to the theater and we can use, I created a second camera, which is one that's on top. That will be for the, at the end, if it's in the theaters. If it's at its house, it's going to be a challenge also. And then maybe it will be only one camera, and that hopefully we'll do it live. It's a not only a tribute, but a challenge to be with this great actor, João Miguel. So this is something that's being developed using this language. It's not really adapting, but how to be an artist, how to make images in this world that we're living in, that we don't know how it's going to last. It's a creative process for what we have to do as resistance, trying to find new paths to express ourselves and putting meaning into the technology, which is the camera more than ever. We have a camera here now, you have camera everywhere. Somebody is recording. We're all being recorded by the computer camera. About 5 that are being recorded. We have camera everywhere. So let's use them. How do we use them? That small light that's coming into me in my room. How can we use these lights, these natural lights? How can I use these cameras? But I focus with you here on this play, this part actually, this part, the different cameras that show our lives, the different size cameras, and put us in boiling, that make us live. And that's what we're doing. I came to tell you how we can express ourselves with camera. That's it. Thank you, Elu. Very nice. This association that you always do, the camera and the spectator, or the public, or the audience. So now, will we show it again? Before we give you the floor.
No rancho fundo, bem pra lá do fim do mundo, nunca mais houve alegria, nem de noite, nem de dia. Bando de insetos inquietos invadem os campos, devastam a cultura, mas são devorados por sapos gulosos. Só sopra uma mosca que pousa na velha e a velha fiando. Fábricas vêm para os trópicos, fim das florestas, o solo deserto enlouquece o planeta, derrete as geleiras, aumenta o oceano, oceano na velha e a velha eu odeio sair com essa sensação absurda de que falta alguma coisa em mim. Mas Mas preciso decidir rápido, porque eu já estou ficando atrasada. Musa da música, mãe das Américas, filha da África, fé. Musa da música, mãe das Américas, filha da África, fé. Musa da música, mãe das Américas, filha da África, fé. Na poética, voz da genética, fé. Tiro o seu anel de dote para não dar o que falar. E saio dizendo eu quero mamar, mamãe eu quero mamar, mamãe eu quero mamar. Levava um canivete no cinto e um pandeiro na mão. E sorria quando o povo dizia sossega leão, sossega leão. Levo meu saco de água quente pra fazer chupeta. E rompeu minha cortina de veludo pra fazer uma saia.
Okay, Sing to the End. That's the name of the show. And Gava here talking to us and involved in the technical part. Okay, Gava, let's share how this is happening. We're here live. First, thank you for having invited me. Thanks, hello, Patrick, Erica. It's great to talk to you here. Patrick's experiences were nice to sink in. And this video with Naozeti is great. Well, I started my role in this virtual world finding people, making people talk to one another through these windows. I started this year. Now with the pandemic, I started to do these transmissions. It was for Brasil Cena Aberta, for the YouTube channel. We played Cenas Abertas to install it. It was on a strong moment of the pandemic, just like now that it's coming back. And it was talks that I was backstage. I was organizing, interacting with the participants before they would come in. They would talk to the public, but I did not appear. The public would not see us. We were backstage. I was in the virtual booth. It's the first paradigm. I was backstage on a virtual meeting with real people, talking about real experiences and virtual experiences on each one's lives. I was doing what I always did presentially, but now I was home in my room. So my house became a booth, a theater booth, my living room. Was I on a theater, on a booth? Was I backstage? Where was I? So this frontiers between backstage and the stage, I had already lived through that in theater. When I started in theater, in Oficina Theater, I realized that backstage was on stage. I would leave the booth, go front. I had some texts. I participated as musician. As musician, before this experience of Teatro Oficina, I had the experience of the stage with music. I was lucky to have studied who is a German composer who's very well known, professor of many people, very talented. Co-writer died some years ago, but I was lucky enough to study with him in the last years of his life. So he was my first master. I had many professors many teachers. Giorgio Lina, excellent guitar player here in São Paulo. But Kreuther was my master in life. There was this side of education and concern. And he was concerned with our lives, all the dimensions we live on Earth. And he would talk about so many dimensions for me. Each time we are on a very crazy dimension. Now we are on a crazy dimension, this virtual thing. And after Kohonter, I found Zé. Also my master, maybe even more than Kohonter, because I was looking for Kohonter. Zé transformed my life. It was in Teatro Oficina that I learned how to be a technician, how to belong to the theater. There, I noticed these nuances because I watched Zé transforming real and virtual. We had experiences way back. Zé transmitted in 2000 and some. He always had the camera on his hand. Not on his hand, but also on his hand. He always had a camera, always wanted to have a cameraman in moments of struggle and art, questioning everything. Zé registered all his passage through Teatro Oficina. And those are pearls. There is so much there. And maybe one day these things will be placed on the virtual world for everybody to see what happened backstage in Teatro Oficina, besides the plays that everybody has seen. Now, coming back to 2020, I tried to convert all that to the virtual world now because we didn't have anybody, presentially speaking. And the difference from Cenas Insólitas, my first experience that was only home and other people were home watching, is that now I can put into practice in a presential way in the theater, myself in the theater. So everything changed again because now I came back to the theater. I was not in my house anymore, but people were on their houses. So it's many dimensions, many questions. I think all that can really enrich every aspect, technical, aesthetical, of direction, creation, everything. People are going towards that. That was a play with Maria Ribeiro. I love her. And we used 4 cameras to show all that. Mika Lins was the director, amazing, quite precise, to transform all that in a hybrid way. It was hybrid between theater, movies, streaming, live. There was a live on the play, and TV migrated, or she floated among every format. There was a camera in front, which was the public, and that camera was remote controlled. We were in the pandemic, different from now. People are closer now. And we learned to use alcohol now. All those days we could not have many technicians or actors. It was only Maria on stage and very few people as technicians. And in those times, I had to control that front camera by remote control. That was great experience. Virtually, I am being, as I were the neck I would not leave the camera standing or still. It was not another camera doing it. And I would then go to the lateral camera. The third camera was behind. If I got Maria from the back, it was the public. But if I filmed her from back to front, as in many scenes, the public was watching her with the theater behind. So it's one more universe that we crossed. People are not watching this as on a screen. They're only seeing what I am showing. I'm going to their house. And there was a camera on top, totally different from being presentially watching a play. You have the upper camera there, and then the person dives on that image. The person cannot look anywhere else. When Maria was lying down and looking up, I was watching the monitor and I was like, oh my, what a scene. Imagine everybody is watching this and saying, oh my, this is such a change. And after that, the challenges seem to grow because we learn. I started with cenas insólitas inside my house. Then I go to the theater, the actor is there, I'm filming, it increases. And then I went to a play that had 4 actresses in 4 different places. More things crossing. One was in Rio, one in Sao Paulo, one in the US, and the other one with us on stage. But it was not just make the scenes happen and cut it. They were talking between themselves, so we had to make it happen. They had to talk to one another by links. It was not Zoom. A whole technology behind, as if they were on stage together. That was very challenging because it multiplied every possibility of mistakes and the difficulties. And fortunately, there was no error, no problem. We were lucky. Of course, try to provide all the possibilities of problem with resources. And now, coming here, it seems that the difficulty increased because instead of 4 actresses, we have 4 people only in this room, but we have the talks, the shows we present the show itself, then we talk to the actor with director, to programmer, mediators. Our experience that was presential is becoming bigger and bigger virtually. Some people think it's not like that, but I think that even when we go back to presential plays, we'll still stream. I recall when we were doing that play, we received the comments on chat like, I could have never seen this because I am very far away. Rondonia is like going from Italy to Moscow because Brazil is a continental country. And I think this is going to stay forever, this kind of technology. I don't know if it's better. It's not a matter of being better, it's only different. Being in presence brings more freedom. We can remove the masks if we ever get free of the mask. But I think the virtual world is as odd as the presential world. Are we more and more going to stay on this small windows? Because if we go to the theater, it's so nice to sit and do things there, because sometimes on these little rectangles we're just there. I don't know if we are doing all these meetings, theaters, talking so much in a virtual way. Is it to work or to provide existential needs that we have? Because if it weren't for the pandemic, I don't know if we would be streaming. We would be sitting on the same room. I don't know if we are really fulfilling a need, or is it an evolution? Maybe it would take a very long time, if it weren't for the pandemic, to get to a level to have everything virtually in this perfect way. Pathways are changing, the avenues are changing, but the goals or these to change, because we cannot have the same demands we used to. The demands are different. They're not better or worse. They're different. To demand that things are the way they were with the level of silence, it's difficult to close a place, because if you have people there, air has to go about, and when you open the doors, people come in. So maybe the demands have to be changed. Sometimes it's for the better.
Sometimes it's for the better. As it is, if it's different, it can be, maybe it's better, but it's a bit difficult. These are physical aspects. So it's very nice to talk to you virtually, people that we have affinity. Sometimes if we were together, we wouldn't be so lucky. Maybe we wouldn't have the possibility. But I think that's it. Let's try to do it, everything virtually. That's good for everyone. That's pleasurable in doing.
show to the people. When you're on stage, it's the director who have to make those choices, and you have the diversity of public that will have to follow you because the main image is not unique. It's a if you have 600 people watching the show, they're free to look at what they wish. On the other hand, when you have one screen, for example, in cinema or television, you're gonna give them exactly what you want. It's their reaction that you're gonna guide. On stage, uh, the strength of the representation will probably be stronger if you can blend and mix the media. So one image, one point of view, one stage element will be also visual as a scenographer or a screen or a surface for lighting and projection. But what we do actually right now is without any participation of the public. It's the feedback that makes every actor active on stage playing differently for an audience of 2 or 3 people, or 600, or just for a camera. When you're an actor, you learn how to play differently because you know that you're going to be filmed or you're going to deliver to an audience, and the feedback will not be the same. But on the other hand, the public and participant of the show or the conference or the chat, uh, we might not be as sensitive as the public to figure it out that we are part of a crowd. If you go to a rock concert, you get, of course, you get the idea that the whole stadium singing the song with you. Okay, it might be more obvious than being actually in front of your computer listening to me. It's completely not the same, and it's not because I'm that boring. It's just you're alone, and even if you have 12 people listening to me, you're still gonna be alone. If you're in a conference room and you have other workmate looking at the same video, it's not the same because you share that with other people. And if you are in the venue looking to film, not even the same if you're in the movie theater than if you're in the live theater. So the live idea of it, the idea of you have different of perspective and free of freedom of perspective. I can look where I want to, and I can express my feeling in a way that I don't have to write, chat, or give it. If I have chicken pox because it's so vibrating, or if I'm about to cry, the people around me will feel it in some way. Actually, it's the limitation of the media that actually we need to address, and it will probably be a different media. And since if we hit those boundaries hard enough, we'll probably make those media soft enough to get proper complementary action, complementary feedback. Some when the DVDs when they send DVDs on the market, some of the feature was to select another point of view. Who did really use that on TV? Who listened to the film with the commentary of the directors? It's other feature that give another perspective, but it's also a different media. You don't listen to the original film with the comment of the director saying that's a new show. It's this old show with other content. I just wonder what we do right now is going to blend into a new media, in a new performance, in a new idea. I don't know.
Obrigada, Patrick.
Thank you, Patrick.
Estava ouvindo ainda a tradução. E aí eu queria voltar para
I wanted to go back to this process,
você comentou do grande
the one that you commented of the sequence plan. You talked about the objective of working the sequence plan as if you were many spectators. I thought that was interesting. You come with a dynamic camera because you don't have addition. This means asks for the dynamics of the view. It's different from live. I would like to talk a little bit more about that. How are you doing this during the process? Well, this comes because it's a monologue, and it's a monologue in which the actor is really something coming from, he's asking for it actually. João Miguel, he is acting and he's interacting, and this character is speaking directly, acting with each one that is looking at him. He thinks that this live, this camera has to be not following him, but playing with him. Technically, it has to be well solved, because I can't use only one camera, because I can have a problem when I broadcast. So I developed two other positions for the cameras that they're more closed, they're closed, and I only will open them if I need them. So my body and his body will breathe together for 40 minutes, and that's what I'm prepared for. And in the pandemic, we can't rehearse very much. The idea was to have the concept and to rehearse and begin and do it, or else he doesn't want to make it a mechanical action or a mechanical game. So is this the dynamics, so to say, and this challenge. You have another camera. I'm going to put it here in this place that's not the imaginary of the spectator, this position, this angle, this upper angle. But I would put it, Bispo, who is the writer, they call it the God view. Some say it's the devil. It depends. You're talking to some entity. But the idea of this camera is because he will end the game about to the God or to the devil.
There is a question here from the chat, YouTube chat. Johanna Albuquerque. I would like to ask Patrick what you're doing to fight technical problems of transmission so that you don't lose everything on the opening. Did you get it?
Yeah, problem of transmission. You're talking about. I suppose that you're talking about feeds, live feeds, and transmission to the when we decide to broadcast show. Actually, that's one of the issue right now, because people want to do show small events, and one of the demand of the market or the struggle to survive is to make something out of our life and what we used to do, and find our public and find a market to at least, if we don't do what we used to do, say that we're still alive and there's still something going on, even if we miss the public. So there's some there's some way we can, and some way we don't wish to do is there's nothing more boring than putting one camera in front of a theater show. It's look like an archive. Uh, it's odd, it's rough, it's harsh to say it this way, but we live in a world when we open the TV and see everything cut, edit, well filmed, well framed. When you are in a live theater show, in a regular theater play, it's you and your eyes that doing all that job. If you take your point of view and replace it with a large view camera, it's completely out of context. It's expressing the exact opposite of a director's, editors, and filmmaker job. So if you present it raw like that, you have a perfect archive. After that, the purpose of transmitting that properly, it's a technical issue, but do you really wish to do that? So right now, what we are aiming is have people who's doing live transmission, but with a different point of view. Like, can you turn it into at least a live TV show? But the TV format has already has its own language. When you listen to the Oscar or any live show with plenty of boring stuff, like I'm going to receive a prize, I'm going on stage, I thanks my parent, and I go back. It's quite easy, but they changed the formula and they put entertainment in between. But we already knew all that, and we have a certain kind of expectation. So if you try to put on TV or on YouTube or on any other medium that kind of stuff, you need to think in a different language. So can we have 3 camera? Can we have close shut? Can we have a better sound? Can we have... So we're gonna take one theater play and film it for the TV. But on the other hand, if you take it too close shut at the theater play, you'll have what I expressed earlier, like in the opera, the Metropolitan Opera, they decide to film in high resolution their show to see to the world, transmit to the world on cinema screen, very large screen, the show, the opera show. But actually, it's not a good TV show. But on the other hand, it's a way to access something that you cannot access. So you don't have to take the plane to go to New York City to see one people singing in Wagner's opera. But you see it in a way that it looked like on stage. So it's huge. The play, it's too big. The actors' play is too big. The props are rough, not managed, haven't been designed to be seen in a close-up. The makeup they look like clown if you do close-up of something that should be seen from 15 meters away. Some of scenographers don't agree I say my costume and my makeup will not be on TV. Please don't do that because I'm working in cinema and TV industry as well, and I don't want people of the industry mix the media and mix my work. When I do cinema, I have a I have a language to respect because I know that's going to be in HD, very close, and with a director of photography that's going to coach me about the way he's going to treat the film and what kind of effect is going to be placed. And I have to respect the mood. And if you go on stage and take what I designed for the stage and just take a shot at that and put it on TV, it's going to be ugly. So that they don't want to do that. They don't agree. After that, if you decide to send it live, uh, there's no way you can do a Facebook Live event in HD. You don't have any, even if you have a super production and you have all the technical needs, all the technical instrument that you want to, the broadcasting of this live feed will be complete, completely random to the quality of the listener. So what are you proposing exactly? If you give your art and your sensibility uh, to a media or to a product, you wish at least to have a certain amount of control on how the listener will receive it. Why cinema screen are calibrated? Because you cannot afford to see that movie too green because the color balance will be all bad. So they have standard. So if you listen to into your computer screen and it's all bad, well, the director won't agree. That's why there's the difference between cinema screen and computer screen. If you don't mind as a public, well, I'm pretty sure that the directors and the people who decide to do the film will mind, will have an opinion on that.
Alô?
Oi, Elô, estamos te ouvindo. Você quer comentar?
Okay, hello, go ahead. I find it very important everything Patrick said because I think that to design a show, a theater play to be filmed for a live and design it to be seen at 15, 40 meters, it's entirely different. When he gives the example of a close-up in an opera, or you close the plane, a plane that was conceived to be seen in general, that demands care and attention that's different. Technically, not only because of light, temperature of color, when you capture it, the makeup, the skin of the actors. So I think one thing is to record what you call archives. That's one thing, to make an archive of a play. And the other thing is to conceive something that's going to be filmed. If in Casa de Francisco we would have public, it would be an entirely different show because we conceived the instruments, the 5 musicians, where the public would be in order to be able to have a shooting design where each one of them would have a focus of light, and I would have places where space was not as present as the musicians. Now Osetti's skin was more important than the space itself. So where can we hide those cameras? Not hide. I don't like to hide the camera the camera has to have its own role, but where you put the camera, where they are not seen all the time by the public. So I need shadow areas, black areas, so that these cameras are there, and we, dressed in black, have to be there. So it's very nice to share with Patrick all this. One thing is to record something, the other thing, or to make an archive, and the other thing is to conceive that. And in this moment, that generates this creative process. You have to be on the place of the audience, because it is it's more like how you create different environments. And technically speaking, for me, it's two entirely different designs. Think about the color temperature and how you capture that. Now, speaking technically, all the codecs, and to put that in balance, make the cameras respond to the same colors. That light has to be on the color that you created, and it has to be captured with balance. And the skin of the actors, of the characters, more or less makeup, close-up or not, all that is the word of the movies, thinking about how to film everything. For sure, colors and textures. This customs, sometimes that you have to change customs quickly, and the camera may show something that should not appear. So it's entirely different. And of course, these issues of composition that you also bring, Elo. What if you're going to show somebody who is doing the archive or not, because that person is in the composition? Okay, we're heading towards the end. We don't have any further questions. Gava, do you want to comment anything? I'll comment that, as Elo said, and so did Patrick, I was lucky to participate in two creations. People or the plays did not have to be adapted. We had vector scope to measure the lighting. It was odd to see the play, the light of the place. But on screen, it looked nice because the light was for the eye of the camera. The public that might be there would see dark scenes, odd to red, but in the camera it's different. Now we're going at the end of this month, if everything goes right, I hope. 1/3 of the house in Belo Horizonte will be transmitted. So the play will have to be changed again so that people can sit there using 1/3 of the house and watch. So I want to thank again Andrea, Erica, Casaberta, everybody from the production. And everybody I'm forgetting. I want to thank the interpreters that I did not introduce. We have Emily and Angela here helping in translation. Thank you. Yeah, great job. Laura is also helping in translation. And the three of you, Patrick, it was a pleasure to participate on this talk with you. Your experience is invigorating for us. In Eloisa, more and more, I want to follow your work. I wish you luck, and that we can serve the public more and more.
Obrigada a vocês todos. Foi prazer estar aqui.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here. thank you for the invitation from Cena Aberta, and I think we'll continue with the program. And that's it. Okay, goodbye.